Last week, we went to a tech conference, and from the corner of our eyes, we caught a glimpse of a MetaQuest 3S. It was a prize to a game at the New Relic booth.
The game was a Flappy Bird clone. As broke students, we couldn't afford our own MetaQuest 3S, so we made it our mission to win it.
Now, we aren't Flappy Bird national champions, but we are self-proclaimed hackers.
So we spent the night working away to hack the game and get the highest score possible, to win that MetaQuest 3S the following day.
We had an awesome time and learned loads.
This is our story of hacking a game to win a free MetaQuest 3S.
Enjoy! Upon visiting the website, the first thing we did was play the game a couple times to get a good understanding of how everything worked. Then we opened developer tools, and this is where we ran into our first problem. The website would redirect you to another page if you open developer tools, so that was out of the question. But we thought maybe if we find the GitHub source code of the website, we could remove that constraint, but we think the repo is private. So we tried to find popular Flappy Bird games that the Relic developers must have cloned or starred, but after running a few of them locally, they clearly weren't the same game. Now, it being 2025, we of course considered AI. We could train a machine learning model to play the game for us, which is a very well documented project with loads of resources online. The problem with this is that we're interfacing with the game through a website, which meant training would be super difficult and we need a clean way to integrate the model with the site. So we parked that idea to the side and investigated network requests. As developer tools was blocked, we tried using Wireshark but failed, so we instead just used Block Origin to look at the requests being sent from the website. Through this, we got a way better understanding of the game, including how the scoring system works. Unfortunately, it was a cryptography-based system, so we couldn't crack it. We did learn, however, that the game is run locally in the browser. This means we could find the JavaScript file containing the game's code, which would let us manipulate the game or run it locally. And sure enough, we found it. But it was bundled and minified and just completely unreadable. But we knew this was the key to our success, so we needed to deobfuscate it.
First, we tried VS Code's JavaScript formatter, as well as a bunch of online tools, but these weren't very helpful. We then happened to scroll to the bottom of the file and noticed a line mentioning source maps. A source map is a file which maps modified code back to the original source code. So we wrote a script using Claude AI to combine the two files and extract the original project structure. We looked through the project for a bit to find the code responsible for creating the encrypted token to generate points. We found it, but realized it was a bit tricky to exploit, as we probably would have had to send a request for every single spoofed click. So we decided to change our approach.
We realized that we don't actually need AI to play the game. We came up with a really simple algorithm instead. All we had to do was automate it. We messed around with Python scripts for a while, and it was promising, but ultimately there was too much latency, making it unreliable. So at this point there were two possible solutions. First was to simulate the game physics, and we found where it was in the source code, but couldn't decipher how it was implemented. Second, we could try and find a faster way to sample the position of the bird and pipes, which we could do by accessing the right variables in the source code. But if we manage to do that, we might as well just change the variables to suit our needs. Automation simply adds an extra unnecessary step.
We needed to replace the JavaScript on the page with our own version. We initially thought about hosting a modified JS file on an external site, but quickly realized running a HTTP server on localhost would work just as well. First, we tried TamperMonkey to replace every mention of the JS URL with our localhost URL, but TamperMonkey only executed once the JS had already loaded, so it didn't work. We then tried using uBlock Origin to block and redirect the requests, but for some reason, the website refused to accept the modified script. Next up, we tried a proxy. First we used Burp Suite, as we already had it installed. Unfortunately, we could only get it to spoof requests rather than responses, so we tried MITM proxy with Firefox instead. After lots of trouble setting up the proxy, we changed the JS to increase the strength of gravity, and loaded up the page. Boom! When we started the game, the bird fell much more quickly, so we knew we'd successfully replaced the JavaScript. We then noticed that the graphs at the bottom of the page weren't updating, so our high score wasn't being sent to the server. The leaderboard wasn't live, which confused us a bit. Luckily, this turned out to be an easy fix. We'd forgotten to select the option to trust the certificate when setting up the proxy, so we changed the setting and everything worked. Now, we could change arbitrary game variables, so our next task was to find which parts of the minified code changed what. Luckily, most of the original variable names were still present, so we didn't have to recompile anything from the source code. We found variables controlling the position of the pipes, the gap between pipes, and the strength of gravity. So we changed the variables to move the pipes off the screen, reduce the gravity, and we also set up an auto-clicker. This allowed us to automatically play the game for as long as we wanted and achieve any score without being sus. We could even change the number of points gained per pipe.
With the game hacked, we proudly made our way to the New Relic booth to show them our handicraft.
And unfortunately, they gave away the MetaQuest 3S the day before.
So, We went home empty-handed.
Anyway, we hope you learned something, thanks for watching, check out the game in the description, and see you next time.
Bye!